This is the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast, episode 365.
I program my home computer.
We have a server crash, oral for error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster.
We have the technology. The technology.
Why, hello everybody, this is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, upcoming events, we have one, WordCamp Prague, February 27th to 2021. It's happening. I double-checked the website, saw some stuff on Twitter, so it looks like it is happening. I believe it's all online as far as I can tell. Yeah, it is. It's I can't translate the language, but I can see the graphic. It does say it is online, so there you go, Letos online. So there it is, double-checking that. So there's WordCamp Prague, check that out. That is it for this, for upcoming events. Moving right along, segment 1 in the news. 3 things to talk about here. It's only been a week, but now WordPress 5.7 beta 3 is out. Again, you can do bleeding edge nightlies if you want to do that. You can test this on a staging server, which is always the smarter way to go. 3 weeks away. Final release date is March 9th. So there you go. So yeah, it's been 27 bugs have been fixed since beta 2, and it's just kind of cruising right along. Check that out. Also in the news, Easy Digital Downloads 3.0 is now in public beta. Very excited about that. Looking forward to that a while back, but they finally did the whole rewrite, updated stuff. They're pulling tables out of core tables into their own tables. Should be really cool. So Easy Digital Downloads version 3 is now in public beta. And finally, Gutenberg also is now in version 10.0. Just got updated from 9.0. Now this is a 10.0, 9.9. This is the 100th release of this as well. So check that out if you want to stay leading edge on Gutenberg as a plugin versus part of core. Is that it? Yeah, that is it for the news. All right, moving on, segment 2. This week, I'm sharing my interview with Dr. Sherry Walling. So the topic is that of mental health. Full disclosure, the topic is heavy as we discuss self-harm. So if you aren't in the right place to hear that right now, maybe skip this episode and come back when you're in a better place. That being said, if you are in need of help, please reach out. Please call National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 1-800-273-8255, or talk to someone you know, call someone, call me, reach out to me, and get the help you need, okay? So with that, here is this week's interview. Today, I am joined by Dr. Sherry Walling. Sherry is a chaos whisperer, psychologist to entrepreneurs and leaders, and an aerialist. Additionally, she is a mental health advocate, author, speaker, and the host of one of my favorite podcasts over at Zen Founder. Welcome to the podcast, Sherry.
It is great to be with you, Adam. Thanks for having me.
I am super excited to have you here. So as I like to share with my audience, I always tell people how we know each other. And I can say that we met in person, if I recall, the first time was WordCamp US 2019. It was like in the speaker, volunteer, organizer's room. And I'll be full disclosure, I fanboyed. I'm like, oh, there's Sherry Walling.
It was so fun to meet you because I feel like we've interacted online,
I think so. Yes.
I've like seen you on Twitter. Like there's been some kind of exchange in the non-human realm, and so to see you in person,
right.
I knew your name, and it was just like, oh, you're Adam.
Yeah.
Hi, Adam.
And I'm like, oh my God, she knows who I am. Yeah, I mean,
and you're taller than I thought.
Everyone says that.
You're tall. That's
the funniest thing is people think I don't know how height transfers in audio. Apparently, it doesn't transfer to audio. Yeah, I'm 6'4". I'm 6'4", and that's the difference. So people don't know. They don't expect it. So, it is what it is. And I'm standing at my standing desk as well. I like to stand when I record just to open up a bit. So with all that said, for those who don't know you, perhaps tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so I help high-achieving people with the hard parts of their lives is probably one way to put it. Mm-hmm. I'm a clinical psychologist, but I've kind of left the traditional therapy realm and now spend my time talking with entrepreneurs and business owners, executives sometimes, about the pain points in their lives. So I love ambitious, world-changing, outside the box kind of people, but I also know that those of us who are doing lots of things in lives also have our own painful stories. And so I try to help people stay really productive and active and doing the things they want to do, while also, healing some of the things that they might be carrying, whether it's from childhood or it's from their family relationships, or it's just like the grind of running a business that wears on everybody at some point.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, like I said, I listened to your podcast for a long time now. I've gone through the couple iterations that you've had of the show as well. With you.
Yeah, at first it was hosted with my husband, Rob, and I.
Right.
And so it had this like founder psychologist kind of vibe, and that was really, really fun. And then he got super busy with other things. And, I was like, oh, you're leaving me behind, but it's okay. We carried on.
Right.
And I hosted it by myself for a while. And
he's been back on a few times since.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you actually went to like bi-weekly, but it's iterated. And it's actually, nothing has been detrimental in my opinion, just so you know, as a listener. It's all been good information, great content. So
that's so good to hear, because you never know what it sounds like to others.
Right.
And there have been times when I'm like, wow, I cannot meaningfully keep up with this every week, so I'm just going to go to every other week, and hopefully people still care.
Yeah.
And so it's good to hear that that's been fine.
We do. So I reached out to you a few weeks back because after someone recently in the WordPress, we lost someone in the WordPress community again. It happens, every community has this happen, but obviously the WordPress community is pretty tight to some extent, and it struck me as we are in this weird time of the pandemic, we're working solo more so than ever, cut off from community. Mental health is something we should all be working on, or I think needs to be spoken about. I mean, I struggle with it. I've mentioned it on my own podcast in the past about some struggles I've had. So perhaps you could share some strategies to the audience on how to manage thoughts of that nature,
Yeah, and I think just to be really specific, we're talking about thoughts about self-harm and, potentially thoughts of your own death or of suicide.
Right.
That's the kind of thoughts we're speaking about. Yeah. I think first of all, I want to say as a mental health professional, those kinds of thoughts are not deeply unusual. So lots of us at points have thoughts about, wow, I wish I wasn't living in this story. I would like an exit strategy. And if we don't have a good idea about an exit strategy to our problems or our pain in a given moment, then, thinking about suicide or self-harm is, it doesn't automatically qualify you for an ambulance ride to the mental hospital, which is, I think, what is really important for people to hear, because I think sometimes there's this stigma around those kinds of thoughts that people think if I talk about this, people are going to think I'm crazy, or my doctor's going to put me on some crazy medication, or they're going to send me against my will to some locked ward somewhere. And I just want to assure people that that's not what will happen. And that it is really important and okay to talk with people when you feel hopeless and when you feel helpless and when you feel like I'm stuck in a sound, like an echo chamber, and all I hear are the same kinds of solutions that aren't working, and I don't know how to get myself out. That is the time to reach out to other humans for other ideas.
Yeah. And then I asked, how about from the perspective of work-life balance / being an entrepreneur / and I get like emotional thinking about this. Yeah.
Me too, Adam. Me too.
Okay, good. But,
this is the big stuff, right?
Right. I mean, and I guess the other aspect to that same, in that same arena is if you have a partner, married or, life partner, whatever what it is, if they're not in that same place, they have let's say a jobby job, or they're, so it's just, you don't have that, you don't have that partnership per se of a business partner. You have a life partner, but they may not see the struggles you're going through. I mean, is it something we should bridge to talk to them as well, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Easy answer. Okay, done.
And again, I want to say this with a lot of nuance, and I want people to really hear me when I say that being an entrepreneur is its own special set of stressors and challenges, but every human has their own set of challenges and pain. So while the challenges of your business might be driving some of your pain and your angst, the people around you have their own familiarity with feeling helpless or frustrated or alone or burnt out. So don't special snowflake yourself into believing that no one else is going to understand you, because that's not true.
True. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in our own heads that, I'm trying to build something bigger than me. No one else gets this whatsoever. And you're right. Okay. That's a good point. It's good to know. This is almost like therapy for me. This is fantastic.
I gotcha.
And what about going, so I'm curious, you said you kind of left the traditional therapy role or that clinical role. Do you think, I guess the way I want to word it is this way, does it make sense to have an ongoing relationship with somebody as a therapist?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I think anyone that is trying to do hard things, and I feel like that's probably everyone in your audience, right? You're a creator in some capacity, whether your tool is code or design or something. You're making things and you're trying to run a business, and this is something that is challenging both your mind and creative capacity. Anyone who's doing hard things needs a support team. I have people that cut my hair. I have people that help me change my oil. It's not that different than having someone help you look under the hood of your own kind of inner world, and just, you stand there together and you look and be like, oh, okay, that's kind of messy. Let's work that out. Okay. So having a therapist, a coach, a mentor, it can take lots of different forms depending on who you are and what you need. But good grief, everybody should have a helper.
So why the stigma?
Good question. I will say, as a critique of my own field, is that we have not done a good job of helping people understand what it is we do. And because psychologists and mental health professionals we've been trained to play in a very medical model, which means that day one, you get a diagnosis and you get an insurance code. And that's necessary because of the way that healthcare is set up. And if you want to use your insurance, we got to give you something, generally speaking. And I'm saddened by the way that works, because it shapes the conversation such that it begins with pathology. And, I still do some therapy, but one of the reasons that I am more, kind of living under the umbrella of executive coaching is that I don't have to make a diagnosis. I don't have to say, Adam, here's what's wrong with you, and here's the code, and I'm going to tell these insurance people, and they're going to give, I just say, what are we working on?
Right.
What support do you need? And so it shifts the conversation a little bit. But just to be clear, therapists do that all the time. They are supportive, they're helpful, they help you find strengths. The necessary sort of application of a diagnosis is really for billing, and it doesn't have much to do with the kind of quality of help that you could, receive.
That's yeah, it's a good point. I never really thought about it that way, but you're right. We want a diagnosis and we want insurance to cover it. So I'm going to blame your industry then for this problem. I'm kidding. I'm not going to blame you.
Oh, that's fine. You can blame us. I'm going to just blame the doctors. They're going to blame the insurance companies. Right. We'll just roll it down, roll it downstream.
We won't even get into the whole socialized medicine aspect of it then.
Right. We're working from a broken system, but I do think that has fueled some stigma.
Right.
And it shouldn't. It shouldn't.
I'm case in point. I recently downloaded my plan from my medical insurance to see what's covered, if anything. Do I get any sessions covered? I'm at a point, as you can probably hear and see, you see me through Skype. I should probably go talk to somebody. I have some issues, so I would like to talk about, mortality being that, as I had a big birthday last year, anyway, but.
Was it 40, Adam?
Yeah, I wish.
50?
Yeah. Really? Yeah.
My friend, you don't like a day over 37.
Well, thank you. I will send you a check. Yeah, 50. So yeah, it's and that's part of my issue. Running the business, I have 3 teenagers. Well, no, I have 2 teenagers. One's over 20 now. But it puts that mortality thought process in my brain. Like, what's next? What's tomorrow? And then again, being kind of cut off from the community. I don't get to hug anybody. I don't get to see our friends and our peers on a weekly or monthly basis at conferences. So it's that, unfortunate situation and circumstance that we can't control right now.
And you don't get to feel that the feedback loop of your impact.
Right.
Right. When you have a conversation with someone in person and you look them in the eye and you give them an idea or just some support and they
Right.
say thank you,
Yeah.
that immediately just lands of, okay, there's a reason for me to be here doing this.
Yeah.
And I have a teenager. I don't know about your teenagers, but sometimes it's a long feedback loop. Like I'm like, okay, you're 14. You don't really like me very much. By the time you're 25, hopefully we'll be friends again.
Right.
And so much of our lives are a slog and an investment playing long ball. But those in-person gatherings are really they're a tighter feedback loop. And I think that's what a lot of us are really missing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot lost. I mean, I try not to ever have conversations via text through client work that we do. If there's a miscommunication, I go right to a phone call. You can hear voice.
Yeah.
You know, hearing the voice solves a problem. Seeing somebody's even better. But Slack and Skype aren't the same,
Sure.
when it comes to what we do. So I want to also ask you, because I mentioned to you before I hit record about burnout. I recently re-listened to, you had a rerun episode of your podcast about, not burnout, about setting up a retreat to kind of reset, Talk to me about that, or mention that if you could, about the benefits and pros and cons and how it could kind of be tied together into where we're at right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been practicing personally for a very long time is a personal retreat. Mm-hmm. So it's a time where you take a couple days out of the daily to-do list and you just bask in some of the bigger picture questions like, am I happy with what I'm doing?
Yeah.
What's my bucket list? What are the things that are really giving me life? And what are the things that are just exhausting me? And you write some of those things down. You go through a series of exercises. But the bottom line is you're taking some time away from all of the things that dominate our days to just do some bigger picture reflection. That's really about looking inside yourself. And I actually wrote a little retreat guide, which is available on Gumroad, or it's on the Zen Founder site too, which, sort of helps structure this for people a little bit. But we spend so much energy and time just managing to-dos that few of us really offer ourselves the time and space to ask the bigger questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, and my audience knows this, I've taken 2 sabbatical breaks over the past 6 months. I'm trying to do every 12 weeks. And the first one was terrible. I did a staycation. Huge mistake. I took the whole week off of work, but I was home. So I was still dad, still grocery shopping. So I didn't do any work, but I was it was terrible. And then I took another one down to the beach in North Carolina at a friend's house. That was amazing. I slept first day 12, 13 hours. Yep. But I still did some work because I took, it wasn't ideal. And I took that, I was due for one this month. Like now, I took last Thursday, Friday, half days. So I'm not good at this still, Yeah.
It really is a discipline. And I do think you're right. You have to leave your house.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that that's tricky in the context of the pandemic.
It is.
Because not all of us feel comfortable checking into a hotel or an Airbnb.
My wife was actually, when I went to do the first one that week I took off, she was like, go somewhere, spend the money. And I was just being really cheap, frugal/cheap, really. I should have spent the money. I should have gone away. I was miserable that whole week. It just was not pleasant. I just didn't get what I needed to get. And then 2 weeks later, I went and took part 2 of it down to the beach for 3 days. And that was fantastic. I felt a little guilty, but not really,
Someday, honestly, one of my dreams is to have a little beach house that Rob and I just buy and have available to people to use for retreats like this.
If you want to put it in North Carolina, that'd be fantastic.
We'll see how Bitcoin does. But someday I hope that we can just say, hey, you're a founder, use this place.
Yeah.
Clean up after yourself. It's available.
It's tough.
It is hard. And I will say for people on a budget, there might be more resources than you realize. Like a lot of monasteries will allow people to use their retreats, their rooms for very affordable. There's one in Big Sur that's absolutely gorgeous. And most Catholic communities, I personally am not Catholic, but they extend this to people of all faiths, have retreat places. Usually they're quiet centers or they're places where the furnishings are pretty simple, but they're often gardens and beautiful spaces for people to contemplate, to pray, and to be alone.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Last question really for you is your book. You wrote a book. about keeping your blank together. I don't want to have to bleep this out later. What was the impetus on that? I'm just curious.
Rob and I wrote the book together because I think at that point we'd been doing the podcast for a few years and I'd been giving quite a few presentations on mental health among entrepreneurs. And we just wanted to have one place that's sort of the quick, accessible resource for people who are wondering how to be as mentally healthy as possible while also taking the wild ride of being a business owner. So the book is really the condensed, here's all of our good ideas in one place.
Right.
And, in a way that's, you don't have to listen to 400 episodes of a podcast. You can just get it all.
But I highly recommend it. So, yeah. And just for the people who are listening, it's called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Keeping Your SHIT Together, How to Run Your Business Without Letting It Run You. So, yeah, it's
I will blame my 14-year-old for coming up with the title, actually.
Easy to do. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much. I mean, it's we could have a conversation for hours about the mental health, about the self-harm, but I couldn't do that right now. I would just break down and, I wouldn't be able to put this in the show. But, I appreciate you taking a little bit of time.
I do want to say, Adam, if I could, sorry to interrupt you, but,
by all means.
The suicide rate has increased about 30% in the last 20 years. And those are pre-COVID numbers. Those are not reflective of what I'm sure will be a significant spike in both mental health problems and suicidality. So this really is a really important conversation because all of us at this point probably know someone or know someone who's been lost to suicide. And I feel like it's important for us to have really different kinds of conversations about suicide than maybe we've had in the past. It's definitely a stigmatized conversation. It's relegated to the edges of people who are really sick, but that's of course not true.
Right.
That really smart, really capable, loving humans can be lost in this way. And it's not something that we can perfectly prevent. People like me spend years and years studying. How do we predict this so that we can do something about it? And so there are organizations that are trying to get really creative using things like aura rings and biofeedback to try to prevent or to predict when people are really in danger. There's also the sort of a new field that's looking at the role of things like psychedelics in preventing self-harming kinds of thoughts. So if you are feeling some of your own heaviness around this topic, please know that there are people working really hard to provide good options to help people feel better. There are people like me who will talk through all of those dark, nasty, painful thoughts day in and day out and not be tired. We'll take all of it. We'll listen to it. And then there are things that are changing within the field of mental health that I think will offer new kinds of hope and resources that haven't been available before. So I'm grateful that you are having this conversation, Adam. And I know it's a hard one, but it's really, really an important one.
Well, thank you for that. That's awesome. Yeah. And any resources besides Scent Founder or any other resources for people who are feeling like they need urgent discussion that you would recommend?
I would say do the work to find a person.
Okay. Yeah.
So a therapist in your community.
Right.
Talk to your network, tell your significant other, hey, I think I need a person. Can you help me do the legwork to find someone?
Right.
Relationships are what heal us. They are the glue that keep us intact. And if we've exhausted some of our relationship resources, then adding a person is really the thing I'd recommend.
I agree. I got to get over that hump on my own as well. All right, enough of that. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And people can find you online. Where can people find you online?
I live at zenfounder.com, ZenFounder, and also sherrywalling.com.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
I'm out there in the world.
And I will link to that in the show notes. And thank you so much again for coming on. And if I get any feedback, which I probably will, I will maybe put something else out there for you. So.
All right. Thanks so much, Adam.
Thanks, Sherry. And again, to thank Sherry for that. It was an amazing conversation. Difficult for parts of it. You might have heard that in my own voice. It's tough. So we're all moving along the world and the life as we have it today, as is. So if you need help, get help. You can follow her online. You can reach out, sherrywalling.com. She's on Twitter, at ZenFounder, etc. Thanks again, Sherry, for sharing what you did share. And I really look forward to all of us coming out of this life that we're in a better place as far as in the pandemic and not being around people and getting the support we need. So again, if you need help, reach out. National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. All right, moving on to segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This week's tool, it's a service called Otter.ai. It's for transcriptions. Pretty cool. Someone mentioned this on a call I was on last week, and I have no connection to them at all, but I thought it was kind of neat. Pricing on this, there's a free level, of course. There's a pro level, business level. So you can transcribe audio or video, but get the text transcriptions there. The free level gives you like 600 minutes total per month, I guess. Yeah, per month. Pretty cool. So check it out, Otter.ai, and check that out. If you want to transcribe things, might be kind of cool. All right, let me wrap it up here. If you have any questions, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@kitchensinkwp.com, or use the speak pipe function of the website. If you want to support the show, you can do that. Become a Patreon. If you want to sponsor the show, there's a form on the website. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right, bye-bye. P.S. One more thing in the news. The day this episode drops is my father's 90th birthday. Not that he will ever hear this unless I play it for him, but happy birthday, Dad.